If you want to get your death corpse looking like this is the video for you. First we're going to base coat the miniature with matte black. Now we're going to mix in rust grey with our black and do the first highlight on his uniform. You don't have to be too careful when applying this coat, but if you do make a slip up, you can always fix it with a black wash later. Once your miniature is dry, add a bit more grey to your previous paint mixture and do another highlight. Try focusing this highlight to the raised areas and rims of the cloth. Right now the uniform's looking really dull at the moment, but the next few highlights should make it stand out a lot more. Now we're adding a bit more grey to our mixture. We're applying this to all the edges of the uniform and all the clear raised folds in the cloth. By now you might have noticed the orc in the background. Very soon I'll be making a tutorial on how I paint orcs. Now that highlight's out the way, we only have one more highlight to do on the cloth. Now we'll be highlighting with plain rust grey. Edge highlight the uniform and apply it a lot more scarcely to the raised areas of the model. And finally, that is his uniform done. Now we're going to base coat the leathers with olive brown. I feel like at this stage you can really start to see the miniature coming together. Each layer I'm adding is slowly bringing this character to life. We'll now highlight the leathers with a 50-50 of Mournfang brown and an olive brown. When applying this, try avoid getting paint in the recesses. The first highlight is now done. Now we're highlighting with plain Mournfang brown, only targeting the areas that we want to be lighter. You don't have to be too worried about making mistakes on the boots, as we're going to dry brush them to make them look dirty later on. So far this is what our model is looking like. Now we're going to add some white to our Mournfang brown and do an edge highlight on the leathers. I find the hardest thing when doing edge highlighting is getting your paint the right consistency. Many times I've added too much water and the paint's just flowed into the recesses. And now our leathers are done. Now we're moving on to painting the bedroll on the backpack. For this we're using Rakarth Flash. Here's what the miniature should be looking like now. Now we're making it grey with our previous white and black and edge highlighting the equipment and armor. And that's the armor and casings pretty much done. Now we're adding a bit more white to our mixture and doing a second edge highlight. Make sure you're not just painting over the last edge highlight when applying this. Place the highlight in the more specific raised areas. I use this colour here I'm mixing to base coat the skulls and the faceplate. Now going in with plain white and highlighting the skulls and faceplate again. Here's what he should be looking like now. Now we're mixing Rakarth Flash with white and highlighting the backpack. Here I've decided to skip a stage. Right now I'm doing non-metallics and I feel like they need their own tutorial because it takes so long. Instead of this, when I'm painting large amounts of miniatures, I use gunmetal from Army Painter and wash it with Agrax Earthshade. As you can see here, this is what the non-metallics have turned out to look like. Now we'll be going in with some turquoise and dotting the eyes of the corpsemen. What we've done here is highlight the lenses with blue-green and put a small white dot on the edges of the lens. Now we're placing glue on the base for the parts that we want to be gravelled. We run the miniature's base through the gravel and shake off the excess. Before painting, you have to make sure this gravel is dry, or else it can really munt up your brushes. Here's what he's looking like right now. Now that our miniature is dry, we're going to mix up a grey and apply this to the entirety of the base. So far, this is what our base is looking like. Next, we're getting olive brown and dry brushing this all over the base and the bottom of the cloak. I don't know why my camera zoomed in so much, but here's what he's looking like right now. Now we're going with a 50-50 ratio dry brush of olive brown and flat earth. Now the base of the miniature is pretty much done. One thing I forgot to paint was the small thing on the bottom of the backpack. For this, I painted it black. Here's that done. Now we can move on to detailing the base. Right now I'm adding an orc skull to the base. To base coat skulls, I use flat earth. Now we're going to add some gore to the miniature. We're going to stipple in dark red to select areas on the armor, sword, and base. This is what's going to make our corpsman look truly battle worn. Now we're going to add a different shade to the blood and add in some flat red. Once we've done this, we can now paint the outside of the base. For all my models, I paint the rim of the base black. Our corpsman is almost complete. The final step is to highlight the skull on the base. I will be using this bone color as our first highlight. When highlighting this, you'll want to target the raised areas, especially that like the brows and the teeth. Our last step is to add a bit of white to this highlight. And that is how you paint the Death Korps of Krieg. If you found this video helpful, drop a like or subscribe, it really helps out the channel.